Alright, I believe we are live and good to go. Welcome everybody to Grand Prestige League Season number 6. We have a beautiful doubleheader for you here today for the last chance qualifiers for the WEC top category. Now, if you guys remember from last time, we had our open qualifying session. We had I think a total of 8 sessions, across 4 days. 2 of those were streamed, and so those were to determine who races in which of the 2 categories. The top 9 drivers from every single session automatically qualify for WEC, and then I believe the bottom 9 are automatically entered into SWT. Right now, it's pretty much everybody in the middle that is fighting for a position in these 2 divisions. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the open qualifying times table just to kind of show who has qualified so far. So far the drivers that have definitively made it into open qualify or WEC is we have Lucian, Comer, Whiteout, Nuko, Whiplash, Ghosted, King, Alex, and Daniel Spillane. In this session here, we're going to have a few drivers. So, a few drivers just to name, or just to go ahead and give you some names. I'm going to go ahead and pull the list up. So, we have some drivers here on track. R Debris. Actually, we'll go on track because I think there's a few cars lapping, possibly. Indeed. So, we have Decadono. Decadono is fighting for a spot in the WEC. A very impressive driver. He's been a regular since Season 2. He's raced for a few different teams over his time in the season. Over his time in the series, I should say. Raced a little bit in SW team with teams like Halix, and he started Red Bull Adidas, which has a strikingly Williams-like livery here on track. So that is one of the drivers we currently have. R Debris, I'll get some information on that driver. I don't see anything at the moment, but we do have some very talented drivers. Artura, Yuki, and Flaring Aces, those are very familiar names if you've been around either this space or Formula GT. Very solid drivers, all of them. Artura also part of that Red Bull Adidas. And to answer your question, B23, if you're not racing today, because I know you're also in that sweet little limbo of getting into SWT or WEC, then we can do open comms if you so desire. But we're going to stay on track a little bit with R Debris in that Monster Energy Honda Spotify machine. Pretty neat livery. Simplistic. I like the fade. I've always been a sucker for fade textures. So, very shortly we're going to go ahead and do qualifying. Now, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and tell you some information about the Autodromo de Interlagos. Track is based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 4.309 kilometers, 2.677 miles around, with 15 corners. It is one of the IRL circuits in Gran Turismo. If we had balance of performance on, it would be a mid-speed. This track has a lot of elevation changes, and it's used in a lot of different series, like Formula 1, I was about to say Formula 2, but they don't race there. Brazilian stock car, which I know, I think I recommended it last time out. You should definitely check out Brazilian stock car. It's actually a lot of fun to watch. It's kind of like Brazilian touring car. So after we do these 2 sprint races, go ahead and check those out. WEC raced here last year, the World Endurance Championship, not the World Elite Championship here. So yeah, this is a very fun track, very popular. Always delivers some very exceptional racing, especially in the rain. We won't have rain here today, but rain does make this track a lot of fun, and it's still a lot of fun in the dry as well. We'll go on board with the XO Aston Martin driver of Artura. Working with... Now, we have seen him before in the Red Bull Adidas liveried machines. This time, not so much. Still in that very, very pretty. I believe Arturo is actually the livery designer for this team. Or I think for a lot of the drivers on the grid. Very talented livery designer with Arturo as we see him on track. It is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 1300, so I do believe we should be getting qualifying underway very shortly. So just to give you a rundown of what this session is going to entail, it is 2 sprint races, so 2 15-lap races on 2 separate tracks. We have Interlagos as the IRL track that we're going to be doing for this last chance qualifier. And then looking at trying to find the attendance here. Yeah, so, and then we're going to head to Deep Forest Raceway. Now, Deep Forest Raceway, I'll talk about that track when we actually get there. And you will see a blue screen momentarily. B23 has invited myself to comms. So we're going to have a co-commentator with us here. Let's go ahead and get into that party. Just give it a second to load in. We are waiting on one driver before we get underway. So I believe we're just waiting for one driver and one steward, and then we'll get things underway. Our debris sets the fastest time of the session with a 1:13.569. It is a pretty short track, just a little over 4.3 kilometers. So these lap times are going to be rapid, even in these inline 4 powered machines. I mean, for inline 4s, they get 625 horsepower out of these Super Formula Honda or Toyota engines. So yeah, I think we have a really excellent race here today on our hands. 2 sprint races, so that is definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. And do we have B23 yet? Is the question.
Yes, we have here. And
all right,
off the
awesome.
Rip, that's quite a lap time. 13.5 is actually a very big lap time.
Indeed. That's
definitely a WE level lap time, I would say. That's very good.
Indeed. So, what do you think the strategy is going to be here? Because I know it's one mandatory stop. You have to use the Racing Soft and the Racing Medium tire compound. So, what tires do you see being the predominant starting tire? Because I'm thinking mediums, personally. And then you could just have a last lap shootout on those soft compounds. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I agree that I think the medium prop of the overall race. I think it also contrasts these guys dedicated to the round. Didn't practice too much for this, then I think we're going to see a lot of people on the soft, just so that they can know all the exactly how long they will last.
Yeah, I mean, Interlagos is a track that always provides really excellent racing, a lot of good overtakes. So we're going to go ahead and see how this race unfolds. Still waiting on Iceman. Very stellar job in the open qualifying, but not quite enough to get automatically qualified for WEC, but not quite in that bracket to get placed in SWT. So a lot of drivers here in limbo when it comes to this these 2 sprint races. So I believe we're going to have our full rosters for both WEC and SWT after. So any bold predictions, B23, on who's going to make it and who's going to go down to SWT?
Well, I'm not very familiar with Rick Debris, but if that lap time's anything to go off, he's pretty certain candidate to get in. I would definitely say drivers like Paco as well, who's Fernando Gomez up there. Ducky Dono is he's a familiar face, but he was always up there at the top, getting podiums pretty much every time he was in the races. And he has good WEC experience as well, so I think he's pretty sure to get a seat there. As we see a big crash here in practice between Arturo and Pixel.
Good thing they're doing this in qualifying. Now, rule number 1 is when you're racing your teammate, don't crash into him. It's a pretty common, it's a common rule. I mean, sometimes it is easier said than done, especially if you're both fighting for a possible championship or fighting in a spot in the top category of Grand Prestige League. So I understand, but I mean, hey, at least it's practice, so nothing really carries over. You're not going to give any mechanics a heart attack or anything of the sort. So I think, I mean, at least you got to get at least 1 or 2 crashes out of your system before we get live here. And Nuko said earlier in game chat that we are starting in 3 minutes time for the first qualifying session of this last chance qualifiers.
3 minutes, cool. That's good. And I do want to test one little quick too, since we're still in the preseason. I will make sure that I think I'm going to switch over to the app real quick to see if I'm less laggy. I feel like my bit.
Yeah, it is cutting in and out quite a bit. I've been able to decipher just because PlayStation, we've been around for several years, so I've gotten used to it. Dealing with connectivity shenanigans. I will say, Chemisure's livery, I know it's a HoloLive livery, but it reminds me so much of oh, I forget what the name of that team is. There's if you guys have ever played Wipeout, like the version, I think it's any of the Wipeouts, but in particular the version on PS4, the Omega Collection, I think Quirek is the team name. Quirek? Not sure how it's actually pronounced, but that car reminds me so much of the, I'm just going to call him Quirek for the time being, the Quirek racing team from Wipeout. I need to play that game more. It's a fun game. I miss it. But anyways, I wouldn't mind seeing some more Wipeout-inspired liveries here on circuit. Chemisure's livery, that is the first thing that just comes to mind, is Wipeout. And I apologize if you did see a little black bar come across the screen. B23 joined via his phone to test if it's less laggy. So, do we have him? Do we have our co-commentator? I am taking that as a no for the time being. We are going to get started here very shortly. A few cars on track. We don't have a massive roster, but this is the last chance qualifiers for WEC. So when we get to the full season, there will be a lot more cars on track and a lot more drivers going at it. This is the last bit of the preseason, just so we can go ahead and get started with our full season, kicking off in Monza in a few weeks' time. Yeah, I don't believe we have B23 still. As we see Decadono, oh, there he is. Yeah, it's still cutting in and out just a smidge. Alright, well, indeed. We have 7 cars out on track, and that's the sound for qualifying is beginning. We're going to have our first drivers do their outlaps. We'll go on board with a few drivers. If you have any specific requests, please place them in the comment section and we'll go ahead and switch to the onboard of said driver. And yeah, I think we have a really solid session here on our hands. We got 10 minutes of qualifying for both races. So, like I mentioned, we have 2 sprint races here today back to back. So there's a lot of racing action for us here today. So once we wrap up here in Interlagos with qualifying and a 15-lap race, we're going to switch over to Deep Forest Raceway for another 10-minute qualifying and another 15 laps. So, out of these 2 tracks, which one are you really looking forward to today? The crickets are very loud. Alright, so we're gonna go on board with...
Oh, I was muted.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. always fantastic, but I do slightly anticipate for Deep Forest just because Sector 1 is so insane in these cars, especially. I just fly through basically at full speed through a really tight area where every other car is much, much slower through there.
Indeed, it does kind of feel like a Swiss version of the A Rouge corner at Spa, so it'll be a very fun track to watch. Sector 2 is a very tricky sector. I was driving it yesterday in the Super Formula car just so I could get a feel for it. And yeah, Sector 2 was a bit tricky. So, but it's a track that has a lot of straight lines as well. So there's going to be a lot of good overtaking opportunities, particularly through the tunnel section and the run up to turn 1.
Yeah, and I think that's a great characteristic about both of these tracks is that both are really good for battling. You can overtake pretty much anywhere on the track.
Indeed. So we're going to stay on board with R. Debris. He's coming across the line. He's going to be the first driver to set a time here in this qualifying session. Where's he going to place? The sparks are flying. The floor is scraping the ground. Where's his time going to be? It's a 1:13.054. That's good enough for top of the times right now. We'll see who comes across the line next. It is Gomez, almost 2 seconds down. That is not the time he would have wanted. Flaring Aces gets a bit closer, but still 1.7 seconds off the pace compared to R. Debris. So, I think that might be a very telling sign of where some of these drivers might end up as we get underway, or as we continue here with qualifying.
Yeah, like at 13, that's a pretty good time. That is a top time, I feel like, because in practice, I feel like first get into the 16, that's a really good lap. When your car's in normal conditions. You go faster with light take, but 13 is even despite all of those things, that's a really fast time.
Indeed, yeah, that's a time that rivals, I believe. I mean, some Formula One cars can barely reach that time, and these drivers are doing it with a bit less horsepower. As we continue to tick on with the times, we're on here with Hop House from KZN. I feel like I'm going to screw that up once or twice. But yeah, so I mean, it's a very striking livery. A Toyota powered machine there. I don't know why, just seeing like bright neon colors on cars is very nice. I do enjoy it quite a bit. But I mean, so far this... Yeah, so qualifying is separated by about 3.7 seconds from last to first. Although I don't believe that Kemmer's time was fully representative of his pace. He's on an outlap. We'll see who's on a flyer. We'll go back with R. Debris. He is a 1,000th up on his previous time to set a very slightly improved pole position time here at Interlagos.
If you don't know, sliding up into P2 up there. Gomez still P3. And as we know, Gomez is a super driver, so we've had a good amount of experience watching him recently, and so that's a good benchmark to kind of get an idea of where these cars are at.
Yeah, just looking back at the notes, he debuted back in 2022 during Season 3. He's had 7 entries in SWT across Season 3 and Season 5 for Scuderia Racing Force, the team he is still currently with. And he's got a lot of experience from Formula GT. He does have a singular podium here in this series in GPL. And so he is a very solid driver. We've seen a lot of pace from Speedy Gomez, as I like to nickname him. So definitely expect him, even if he doesn't manage to snag pole position, expect him to make up some serious ground in the race if he doesn't make a mistake. Because we know that sometimes he can make mistakes, and then his race just kind of goes from bad to worse over time.
Yeah, for sure. And he is good over one lap, but I do think race pace is his. Flaring Aces go P2 with a very good time.
Indeed. So we have some very very rapid drivers here, as we're a little over halfway done with qualifying. This is a shorter outlap compared to a track like Spa, which, I mean, Spa is notorious for having like the longest outlap amongst like most of the tracks that we race here. I mean, I can name a few tracks that have longer outlaps, but those are like usually the extreme tracks, like say like the Nordschleife, Le Mans, St. Croix, Special Stage Route X. So out of the tracks that we actually race on, that track does have the longest of any outlap. It is round 3 of the season this year once we get underway. For WEC, it is on March 2nd. And yeah, we know that B23 is having some connectivity shenanigans and some technical gremlins on his side.
It's always right when it's neat to perform when it goes like this, but yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't have a repeat of Kyoto for the GT500 series, I think we'll be crystal.
Oh yeah, always it could be worse.
That gives me Vietnam flashbacks.
Us it could be worse. Yeah, it has straight up novel flashbacks. It was bad, but you know, at least the racing was good.
Yeah, for the bits and pieces that everybody at home could actually see. So.
Yeah, no one got to see it, but it was good. You can take our word.
And you can take the word of the drivers as well. Kyoto is a very fun track. We are heading to Japan this season, but we are going to Tokyo Expressway, east counterclockwise, a track that is pretty well known in Gran Turismo. It debuted in Gran Turismo Sport, and it's been pretty much the hotspot for every street racing / car meet server on the planet. And it's the host to one of our rounds here in GPL. Both divisions are racing it. It is actually our penultimate round of the season, so that's gonna be a fun track. It's got a massive straightaway. It's got the longest straightaway of any of the tracks we race here over the course of the season. But overtaking on that track could be very, very tricky, unlike the tracks we have here today, which are both going to reappear on the schedule later on. Interlagos, the track we are currently racing on, is one of the 2 sprint weekends. So it'll be a sprint with a reverse grid and then followed by a feature race. And also, something to note is Deep Forest is our round 4, and it's our second race of today, and it also has a sprint race with a reverse grid. So the days to look forward to for those, if you like Deep Forest and Interlagos. We're headed to Deep Forest on March 16th. It's a doubleheader with the sprint and feature race. And then Interlagos is our final round of the season on May 11th with a sprint with reverse grid as well. So we got a pretty stacked calendar ahead of us.
Yeah, it turned out to be that Tokyo Expressway jumped out at me though. In Japan, the one that I would expect the least to be on the calendar, but I'm gonna have to prepare very deliberate that one. It's gonna be tricky, very tricky with those balls, especially battling wheel to wheel. Gonna be tough.
Yeah, I agreed. Although I'm slightly heartbroken that they didn't take my suggestion of adding Jaeger to the calendar. Although I know that track would have been even more chaotic. Yeah. I tried that track on a Assetto Corsa, and I made a Sauber do a backflip. So not the greatest of times. Anyway, we are back to the final laps of this qualifying session. Kemazure is done. His qualifying is wrapped up. His time is good enough for P7. R. Debris, his time is done. It's a 1:12.715. So that's going to put him on pole position provisionally. Now, Flaring Aces is on his final lap. We'll see if he can take the top spot in this qualifying session here for Interlagos. We're going to have to go ahead and see. He's coming up through the last section. He is up on his time, but not enough for pole position. He needs to get a 1.1 seconds faster if he wants to go ahead and take pole position. Where will his time set him? Gomez is done. Hop House is done. Flaring Aces, where would he go? It's not quite enough. It's not improvement either, but he'll go ahead and remain at P2. Ducadono is done, and Artur is done. So that is our qualifying grid. Done and dusted. R. Debris takes pole position with a 1:12.715. And goodness me, that is a lap time of the century.
Yeah, absolutely. Flaring Ace too is in WEC. He spent several seasons there. Expect to see Flaring Aces in the WEC. Long time Nuco, the top team there. So I expect to see him there, and what a good lap time he put into.
Indeed, yeah. So we'll go ahead and run back through the qualifying time really quickly. You have R Debris sitting on pole position with a 1 minute 12:7:15, followed by a exact 1.1 second gap by Flaring Aces, who set a 1:13:8:15, and then we have Gomez, Ducadono, Artura, Hop House, and Camager. Those are your 7 drivers, and well, they'll be starting the first of 2 sprint races here at Interlagos. So yeah, we have a pretty stacked grid here, and this is just in the preseason. So, out of these 7 drivers, I mean, I know we were talking about Debris and Aces, but do you think all 7 of these drivers have the potential to go to WEC, or are we going to see about half of the grid go down to SWT? What do you think?
I think at least like 2 or 3 of these guys probably be dropped down to SGT. And it's hard to say, but you would probably a tour and I'm unsure about House. He's actually previously was a commentator here, so shout out Hop House. It's cool to see him on the track though. But I have no idea what he's capable of in one of these cars. I've actually never drive. But he's a complete known entity to me.
Yeah, so definitely want to keep an eye on. Yeah, I think we're going to have some very excellent racing here. And a lot of these drivers are going to... I do say about probably from... I'll say the cutoff might be Ducadono. We know Ducadono is very rapid. We saw it in the open qualifying sessions with that Red Bull Adidas Williams style livery. And I mean, those top 4 drivers, or I guess I should say second to fourth, they're all pretty close to each other in terms of their times. Not a whole lot separates them. 6,600 separates Gomez from Aces, and then even an additional 3,300 separates Ducadono from Aces, or from Gomez, I mean. So, yeah, I mean, R Debris, definitely the class of the field as it sits right now. But yeah, I think we have a very solid race here ahead of us once we get underway. Alright, so Lucian is going to drop some rules for us real quick. No overtake usage until lap number 2. You have to use both soft and medium tires. And only Lucian could call a red flag. And when the red flag is called, all the drivers will exit and restart the race. So, no overtake usage until lap 2. That is very similar to Formula 1's DRS rule, where DRS is disabled up until lap 2. So, we're seeing Y's in the chat telling them that we are ready. We have 5 of them right now. We have 2 more we are waiting on, and actually I believe, yep, that's it. I think we are good to go. We have Lucian, Whiteout, and Yuki also in the lobby, but they are stewards, so they will not be on track, as well as Killswitch. He was hidden from us a little bit. So we have 4 stewards, 2 commentators, and 7 extremely talented drivers ready to hit the track.
Yeah, one, two, Teo Iceman is. They said he would show up a little late. He's still not here, but that's another driver that could be really probably E3, E4-ish, or like really competitive up there, and possibly getting a WEC spot. So I'm curious to see how his absence would affect that. We still know he's a fast driver, regardless of his presence here at the moment.
You know, and I know we joked about this a lot during the preseason qualifying session last time out for open quali. I think, yeah, he has the unofficial record of the world's longest outlap in GPL with a 25-minute, 38-second .868.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and it's lights out, and away we go. That snuck up on us real quick. We're going to see how much chaos happens in turn number 1. Ducadono is up a spot. R. Debris keeping his lead. A few cars going wide there. I believe that was Gomez going a tad wide. Hop House is looking very close to hop into P4. And it's an exciting race start. No chaos, which is a good thing. So no red flags being called at the moment. Artura sending one up the inside onto Hop House. A little bit of contact, a little bit of bumping and barging. Oh, that's gonna have to be looked at by the stewards.
We got a lot of these drivers right now. I'm sure the guys on that we got really friendly there for a moment. The dive bomb, he made it fit, so good on him.
Indeed, yeah. So I mean, a lot of these drivers are very hungry for those WEC remaining seats. So they are gonna give it everything they've got here in these 2 sprint races here at Interlagos and later on Deep Forest Raceway. So yeah, I mean, these drivers have a lot to play for. R. Debris currently is doing exactly what he needs to, building that 1 second gap. 2 Flaring Aces, and Flaring Aces actually firing off into the pits. That is a interesting call. As overtake usage is now allowed. Damage. Oh yeah, he had damage. That is right. So, for those of you at home who may be unfamiliar to GPL, heavy damage is enabled. So, unlike light damage, your car won't repair itself over time. So once you get damage, it is pretty much stuck to your car up until you go to the pits and get it repaired. I don't know if Flaring Aces will be able to go the distance on the soft tire compound. He's just going to have to make it work, though, just because, I mean, he's already lost a lot of time in the pits. As we continue on track here with Gomez, followed by Ducadono and Artura. It's an almost all-Dutch podium as it sits at the moment.
Yeah, Gomez just taking that off of Keeper in turn for.
It was going to be a all-Dutch podium possibly, but Arturo getting a little bit wide on the exit of the corner there, just gets launched a little bit off track there, so he drops 2 positions. He is now sitting in P6 by Kemmerer and Hop House.
Yeah, there's a couple positions there, unfortunately. He's a really good there too, right?
Indeed.
That's why in the turn 2. That's an easy corner to carry too much momentum into, because it gives you the opportunity to carry more momentum than you're supposed to. And so it kind of invites players to really push a little too hard in the turn.
Yeah, Interlagos is a track not for the faint of heart. That's why a lot of drivers like it so much. It is such a tricky track to get used to. So it is very, and I mean, we know these drivers are experienced. A good amount of them have been around for several seasons. But if you're new to racing or new to Gran Turismo in general, Interlagos isn't exactly the easiest track to learn. Some drivers absolutely excel on this track, and other drivers just can't seem to get to grips with it.
Got these wide, slippery, right in the track zone, so you have to pick up your throttle on these curves, and that can lead to some screeness. And you got corners like turn 1 here where you have to comp your exit into turn 1 in order to get a better setup for turn 2 and 3. And intentionally compromising your exit is just something that these drivers don't do naturally. They won't maximize everything, so you really have to look at how you approach these corners on this track.
Yeah, so
Ducadono making a big mistake, dropping all the way down the order himself.
And he picks up a 1 second penalty for his troubles. We did see a yellow flag.
There.
Yeah, just a race gone from bad to worse for the Red Bull Adidas driver.
Yeah, now excellent consistency and race pace from Gomez as he's setting purple sectors, already carrying this lap right there in P2.
Indeed, yeah, he's doing he's being very consistent, and that's something we know Gomez for. We know him for his consistency, and he has definitely shown that here. So we are a third of the way done. He sets the fastest lap of the sprint. And yeah, so I mean, we've seen quite a few drivers go off here up into turn number 1. So that is definitely a hot spot, and we'll probably see that again later on in this race, and also eventually once we get to the season finale in May. And that's another purple sector right there for Gomez. So Gomez is on the pace.
Arturo is right in the third. He's using a take. He's purple sector, but then he gets a little loose on the outside there and loses some ground. But that is condition soft tire is the meaty tire. We did see a close that gap.
Yeah, he's chasing down Chemisher at the moment. He's going ahead and making sure that, I mean, they were really close at one point, but I think just a mistake earlier on in the lap just kind of made it where trying to pass was not super ideal. We're on board now with the Dutchman as he gets very close. He breaks a bit later than Chemisher, allowing him to close that gap ever so slightly. But now he's just got to chase down the American driver in the Hololive liveried machine. And he's actually going to go to the pits. Curious to see.
Move.
Yeah, curious to see if he's got any damage. He might. Ducadono is also going to pull onto the pits as well.
Oh yeah, Ducadono with a damaged front wing there. This might be around the time they would pit anyways, since it's a kind of a short race, and so you don't want to spend too much unnecessary laps on the mediums as it is slower.
Indeed. Oh, yep, and there's the repairs taking place on that Red Bull Adidas machine. Didn't take too long for repairs though, so they must have that extra strength Gorilla Tape just to put on the car. And he's back out just perfectly fine. You know, put some duct tape on it, it'll work just fine.
Yeah, this is probably the most talented crew I've ever seen here.
Ooh, he was coming to the pits very quickly.
A race in the pits now as well.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, he might, I don't know. That was a very rapid pit entry there, so those brakes are definitely harder than molten lava right now. As he changes to a new set of tires, he's on the soft tires now. He's going to go the rest of the race on this compounded tire. And we're going to probably start seeing the remaining drivers who have yet to pit go ahead and make their stops once this lap wraps up.
So the top three, all three here have not pitted yet.
And that is something to note. Gomez does have a 9-second gap onto P3 of Hop House, or P2 of Hop House, I should say. So when he comes into the pits, he'll probably come out behind our Debris. But he's still setting purples, so he might just try to go the distance. But some of the cars behind him, including our Debris and Ducadono and Chemisher, they're all on fresher tires. So if he doesn't, we know Gomez can make tires go the distance, but it's going to be quite a task to try to play catch up if he doesn't pit sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it looks like he's about a 4-second gap to our leader Debris there, and I believe the pit time, or the amount of time lost in the pits, is pretty substantial on this track. That pit exit is really long. It's probably sort of 30 seconds lost. So I do believe our Debris would be back in the lead as soon as we see these cars pit.
Yeah, our Debris right now is 18.5 seconds, a little bit over behind Gomez, but he's already 5 tenths up on setting the fastest lap of this race at the purple sector 1 for the Dutchman. And I believe we're going to see several more purple sectors as the Dutchman in front of him, Arturo, has a half-second penalty for track limits. He'll get slowed down around the start-finish straight at the end of turn 15. And yeah, that is just not what you want right now in this stage of the race.
Yeah, and these drivers ahead of Debris might want to think of pitting sooner rather than later if he's taking the gap out of them so quickly here.
Indeed. Yep, and he's going to go ahead. He's going to probably have to... I mean, yep, he's just going to pull to the outside. He's going to pull off the racing line and let his countryman through. Hop House is now into the pit lane.
Yeah, and I think that probably having being lulled into the false sense of security because he can only see the gap directly behind him. So that whole time he was increasing the gap on the car directly behind him as the guy he's really raced actually closing the gap up.
Indeed. So yeah, we're going to start seeing a lot of these drivers pit in now who haven't pitted in yet. Gomez being the prime example of drivers who have yet to pit in on this race. So I actually, yeah, so Gomez is the only driver who has yet to pit. We'll do a quick little tire check on the Mexican driver. He's on the soft tire compound. He's actually got some pretty decent wear on those tires, but he's only 16 seconds ahead now of R. Debris. About a lap or two earlier, it was at 18. So that time is dropping like flies at the moment. And he's going to pull off into the pits. Those tires are done. And the Scuderia Racing Force driver is going to go ahead and pop into the pit lane. He's got one podium already in this league. He may be looking at another one, although granted it is a preseason event, but still no small feat considering the talented drivers we have on track at the moment, B23.
Absolutely. A podium is a podium, regardless. I take it.
Indeed. Yep, R. Debris is now back out ahead, and Flying Aces actually with that early pit stop due to the contact he had earlier on in this race. He's up at a P3 at the moment. He is, let's see where it comes out. He's gonna, yeah, he's about quite a few seconds behind Gomez. Still about 9 seconds ahead of Hop House, so I mean his tires are probably not in the best of spots. Actually, I take that back. They are in a pretty decent spot for running the soft tire compound ever since, what, lap 3? So very good stuff there from Flaming Aces on the tire management front. And yeah, there's a good reason why this driver is very highly rated.
Yeah, and the wear pattern is really even across all 4 tires. That's always something that you had as well, being positive for tire wear. And yeah, this is just a testament to his skill level as he's, despite the super untimely pits he had to take away on.
Indeed, yeah, very excellent stuff there from Flaring Gazes. One of 2 British drivers currently on track. Actually, I believe he's Welsh. So the Welsh driver on track at the moment. Very solid stuff from him. Pretty consistent on the lap time front too. Pretty much staying within the 116 to 115 range. He has caught up to Gomez though, who is on the medium tire compound. So are we going to see Flaring Aces actually take a P2 possibly come the end of this race as R. Debris just slinks off into the distance.
Yeah, and he's setting personal bests right now as well, so in his bag.
Pretty much, yeah, he is locked in. And I wonder if we're going to see the same performance at Deep Forest Raceway. We know they are pretty similar tracks, but you never know what could happen from one session to the other. It takes one minor mistake to go ahead and send your race down the drain. Now we're seeing that Ducky Dono could catch Artura, so that's we'll actually hop on board with that one. Ducky Dono he's lapping a bit. Yeah, I mean Artura's just had some not so fortunate laps, but Ducky Dono could possibly catch him. The Red Bull Adidas car catching up to the Exo Aston Martin will be on board with this for a little bit, up until we get to the closing stages, unless there's another race on track. Another battle on track. And potentially we might see one between Gomez and Aces, as that gap is now under 2 seconds.
Yeah, and just lap times between Duckono and Artura. Artura is capable of lap times similar to what he's doing, but he is just consistent at his personal best right now. He is setting low 15s, mid 15s, lap after lap after lap. And it's a very consistent performance, right? Ducky is closing the gap pretty quickly as well up to Artura.
Indeed, yeah. So, I mean, Gomez did make up a little bit of time on flaring aces there in that sector through the twisty turns and bends. Those very fresh medium tires, those borderline factory new medium tires, getting the advantage on the corners there. So I think Gomez, barring a mistake, I think Gomez does have P2 locked in. So I think our top three are going to be pretty much locked in at this rate. We'll go on board with Artura and the Ducadono getting ever so closer to the back of that XO AMR machine as we go on board with the Red Bull Williams livery machine. Yeah, I mean, his lap times are quicker than Artura's, more consistent like you were talking about, as we come to the final 3 laps of sprint race number 1 of the day.
And it looks like Artura might be listening to us as he picked up the pace a little bit on that last lap there.
The commentator blessing, as we coined the term during GT 500.
Yeah, it's good. I like getting a commentator's blessing. It's better than cursing people. Sometimes you got to do that every now and then too.
Yeah, I mean, consistency wins you races. So I mean, it's not really surprising that once a driver's consistency goes up, their lap times go up. I mean, yeah, I mean we're seeing a lot of consistency now between the battle for P2 possibly. A good alternating pattern for flared aces between a 15 and a 16, but Gomez is just set 3 laps all within a few tenths of each other. So I think Gomez's consistency might bring him home, but did he burn too much overtake? We'll actually check that real quick. Yeah, Gomez has burned almost all of his overtake, and so is flaring aces. Aces is burning that overtake right now. So I mean, at this point,
extremely similar pace.
So I mean, at this pace, Gomez is on track to get his 2nd podium in GPL.
Oh, Ducky in the pits.
Must have some damage. We'll check on board with the car. We'll check some car data. He's got no damage, so
it doesn't
interesting.
look like he has damage, and it doesn't look like his tires are particularly bad either. That's very interesting. Oh, maybe he just never done the medium tire yet, so perhaps just fulfilling those tire requirements. And that's super fortunate. Is that gap up?
I mean, possibly. That's a very possible reason. So Artura is going to be safe up in P5 as it sits. Now we're on the final lap of this race. It has been domination there. You might as well get that Dutch national anthem ready, because the Dutch driver of R. Debris is on his final lap with a 12-second gap to P2, and this is definitely a WEC worthy performance. Cannot wait to see how he does when we get underway with our season. Unless he absolutely tanks in the next race, I definitely see this man getting into WEC. Very solid stuff there from the Dutch driver. And R. Debris is coming around the final few corners, and he's going to go ahead and take the race win very effortlessly, I might add. I mean, he's just been in charge from start to finish. I believe he has indeed led every lap except for the lap where he pitted in. So he's got 2 corners remaining. It has been a champion level drive from R. Debris. He's got 1 last corner left. The sparks are flying from the floor of that monster Honda. R. Debris wins the sprint here at Interlagos. What a drive from the Dutchman. And coming around the last corner, it's going to be Fernando Gomez up into P2. Paco takes another podium to add to his collection. Ferengase is right behind him, pitting in on lap 2. And man, oh man, that was a good recovery drive from the Welshman.
Absolutely quite a race to score for Hoffhouse and his GPL. Very solid performance. Kind of slinky up and down the order. He found a decent position out of it, and he got consistent when he needed to find consistency right at the end of the race there.
Indeed, as we watch the last 2 cars come across the line, it's going to be Ducadono He's going to finish off in P6. He had a chance to fight for P5, but I guess those tires just fell off a cliff, or he just did not. He just needed to fulfill those tire requirements. So it's P6 for the other Dutchman. And then Kemisher is coming around the last few corners. He's going to round off the final grid, or final position on the grid. It's P7 for the American driver. And that was a very excellent race there from all these drivers involved. But one driver stood head and shoulders above the rest. R. Dupree takes race qualifying number 1. He takes P1 here at Interlagos. And now we take a little breather. And then we reset and get ready for Deep Forest Raceway.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I like this format, being able to do a couple of quick races in a row. Pretty sweet. I like this. And yeah, like you said too, utter domination for Bree, and it wasn't even particularly close. The big surprise was that the finishing result was not representative of his pace or his consistency, as both of those were excellent. And I think had he not had the big mistakes, he probably would have ended up the podium positions, probably P4.
Yeah, indeed. So 10-minute break in between this race and the next qualifying session. So yeah, Deep Forest Raceway. While we go ahead and begin our quick little break, I want to just encourage our viewers to go ahead and drink water if you haven't already. Grab a snack. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. And yeah, so I think we have a very excellent race underway. And once we get to Deep Forest Raceway, I will go ahead and give you guys a little bit of information about the track.
See you guys soon.
Alright, so I know we're back a bit earlier than anticipated, but while we have the new track up, I'm going to go ahead and just talk about it a little bit. So, Deep Forest Raceway is a track that originated in Gran Turismo 1, although its current iteration, like what you're seeing on screen, only originated in Gran Turismo 7. This track has 15 corners once again, Actually, correction, 18 corners. The original sheet I was looking at was wrong. So it is 2.641 miles or 4.25 kilometers. It's a track that has a lot of similar characteristics to Interlagos, and it has its own equivalent of a Rouge, which is the sector from turn 14 all the way to turn 18, the last stretch. And yeah, so it's going to be a fun race here. It is the second and final of these last chance qualifiers for WEC. And then eventually we will have our results for who goes into which category. We do have a new driver, though, on track. We have Iceman, who has finally been able to get into the session. He will be around for the second of these two preseason qualifying races. And yeah, it's going to be a fun race indeed. We are here in the Swiss Alps for this track, a very beautiful track that takes advantage of the surrounding environment and makes one of the most visually aesthetically pleasing tracks on the planet. And honestly, it is just a rightful shame that this track does not exist in the real world. It is a Gran Turismo original track, and so in the GPL season we're having a good mixture of those Gran Turismo original tracks mixed in with real world circuits. We'll go on track once qualifying kicks off. Some drivers are currently just doing some practice. And in case there's any slight confusion, Pixel, aka Yuki, in the Mercedes safety car, he is not competing in this race in the safety car, although that would be pretty funny to watch. So yeah, we have a very exciting race coming up here soon. Just gonna go ahead and read through chat. I want to say hello to Ghosted, Lusion, Fritz, and Hop House. Also Artura, although he didn't directly say hi. He was mentioning that in the last race he had the wrong tire strat and setup. Hopefully he can get that rectified before the race here today. These drivers have put in quite a lot of practice in between. And now we have a Super GT car, a GT500 in the hands of Lusion. I apologize, Lusion, but my good sir, GT500 was a few months ago, back in December.
He did get the memo.
Yeah, he left the room. I wonder, does he have a safety car livery for that car? That would be actually pretty funny.
Oh yeah, the old double safety car. If the safety cars had the rattle, that'd be...
Have you seen the... Then he went to a 919 hybrid with a Cadillac. Oh, that's whiteout with a Cadillac livery. The Daytona 24 is on right now, I'm pretty sure. I watched the virtual one a little bit yesterday. It was pretty seeing Max Verstappen just randomly spawn in a BMW and race for his team Redline.
Yeah, I always like real life drivers do some racing. It's good for the sport.
And I'm sure that was probably when their viewership peaked for that virtual Daytona race. Although still weird seeing the Ferrari 499P prototype actually there as a just as like a car that competes at Daytona, because normally that car is not an IMSA car, it is an LMH car, and there are some slight differences between the LMH and LMDH rulebook. There's a YouTuber by the name of Formula Jonah that actually did a pretty good in-depth separation between like the LMH and LMDH recommendations, and it's not super complicated, so if you're not as familiar with racing, you could understand it relatively quickly. And yeah, so fun times here in the world of racing. Now imagine if like Team Redline or one of the other esports teams just showed up here at Grand Prestige League. That would be fun. I would like to see that.
I would love to see that, and I definitely encourage them to do so. I'm sure they're listening. So, yeah, you're invited.
Seeing Max Verstappen just dominate the series like he does in F1, at least for 2023 and the first half of 2024.
I am particularly pretty upset about that. Hey,
at least 2024 was a season, though. At least we had multiple race winners. The that we're not just basically all Red Bull with a singular Ferrari, but yeah, we had a pretty good season for 2024. I think 2025 is going to be a pretty solid repeat of 2024. It may start off dominant, but I think it is going to get more spread out as the developmental upgrades come in. But regardless of how close that season is, I think we have some very close racing going on here at GPL, not only in WEC, but also SWT.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be super, super tight, especially if we just open qualifying tables, the spread of times everyone is. Like, I did the sheer number of people to be able to break into the 23s, and there were so many people setting really, really high level times that it's going to be insanely close this season.
Yeah, let's actually go on track a little bit with some of these not exactly up to spec machines. Oh, that is a cool pit shot image right there, like what we got for some of these cars. Like, take a look at the Super Formula car, and this light is just, it goes hard. Like, if you look at Kill Switch or Aces in the pits at the moment. Alright, so we're going to go on board with the Monster Energy BMW of Nuko. Going to go ahead and just start his first lap of this practice session. He's got Yuki, the safety car, going ahead chasing him. Well, we're probably not going to see the rest of that lap. As probably all of the drivers not in a Super Formula car are going to reset, as Yuki in the safety car not doing safety car things by going a little bit wide and drifting a bit. That's not very safety car of you.
Drift.
And that's a spin. Safety car is not being safe at all, but we love to see it.
Yeah, it's the unsafety car.
Apparently right now Yuki's body is a machine that turns safety cars into OSHA violations.
Yeah, that's right.
Alright, so now it is only Super Formula cars on track. We're going to go ahead and get started with qualifying here very, very shortly. Vicious saying, I want to be a dancer. Fun stuff in chat.
Nice.
Alright, so... Alright, predictions going into D-Force Raceway qualifying B23. Who do you got for pole position? Are we going to see our Debris, or are we going to see some other newcomer take pole position away?
I mean, we haven't seen Iceman on track yet, but based on how comfortable that race looked for Debris, you'd have to put on Debris at this point in time.
You know, I'm getting some Vietnam flashbacks. Seeing absolute domination from one specific driver. I know I've scrolled through the GPL Discord a few times and seeing some people have some Vietnam flashbacks when they see Whiteout near the top of the timing table. So what if we're gonna have Dutch Whiteout here on track with our Debris?
Yeah, Whiteout has surprised and terrorized this grid plenty enough, so it's kind of good to see him sitting out a little bit. There's a part of us that are happy to see him sit out, but there's also a part of us that will miss him.
Oh yeah, agreed. So, I mean, we know Whiteout performs exceptionally well. We know he is a very solid, very consistent driver, very quick too. It's scary quick. I was talking with a friend of mine, and actually a friend of ours, Venomous Venom, who raced with Deadeye in Formula GT, and also who's looking to race for Karma in upcoming seasons. But yeah, Roman said that Whiteout was absolutely terrifying when it comes to just pure race pace. And speaking of race pace, we have drivers now out on track. We have 8 drivers this time. Iceman is the newcomer to this grid for today specifically.
JD's on.
He's not a newcomer overall in the series, but just a newcomer for today.
Yeah, an extra shout out to he actually designed the livery that Kura is wearing at the moment too. He designed that delivery for us. So shout out to Whiteout. He's an excellent livery designer as well as a racer.
I swear, Whiteout's gonna win like a Nobel Peace Prize at this point for just how much stuff he's accomplished in Photo GT and GPL and probably other series that I don't know about. But just to give a little bit of background on Teo Iceman, he debuted in season number 2 in the WEC class. Been on and off he's been on and off a bit. He competed in season 2, season 3, and now he's back in season 6. He is with the Foxhound Racing Group, and he's going to be a reserve if he doesn't make it to WEC. But it is going to be an interesting story regardless of where he ends up. We have seen that he does have some pace. He's a quick driver on his day. And yeah, I can't wait to see where he positions himself amongst these other 7 drivers. So what are your predictions on where Iceman's going to place B23? Because I'm thinking, just from what I've heard and what I've seen just from the open qualifying, I think he's going to be right at the middle, but, you know, knocking on the door of the top 3 positions.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what to expect as far as his race pace, but I know for certain that over one lap he is, as it's a track limit penalty there, unfortunately, but I do expect maybe P2. I would guess P2.
Good prediction there. Alright, so I'll put my prediction at P4 just from the absolute pace of Artebri and Gomez, and I think we'll see Dakadono go ahead and go for his redemption arc in this pre-qualifying session. So yeah, and actually I just now saw what his name is, so I can actually give you some background on Artebri. So he raced for Exa Rapide in season 3 and won very comfortably from what I have here in my notes. He hasn't competed since season 3, but he does compete in other leagues as well. Very fast, he clocked a 1 minute 23.5 at Catalonia after the open qualifying session. So Artebri is a very rapid driver, and we saw it during Interlagos, so that is to no surprise at all.
I forgot. I was actually told one time. I forget that. Yeah, he raced for Exo Rapid before it was called Exo Rapid, and before I was around. That's the team I now race for. Yeah, so he was winning. He was winning with our team before I was even involved in it. So that's really cool. A legacy driver.
Yeah, indeed. So it's always good to see those legacy drivers come back and also teach these quote whippersnappers a good time and show them what it's really gonna do here.
Yeah, experience today is he just puts in only 1 lap time on the board, and it is good for pole position at the moment. A lot of these guys struggling at the moment to get a good on the board. A lot of times are either not representative or they have put one up.
Yeah, I mean, this track does have a very tricky sector too. So I mean, sector 1 is pretty chill, pretty easy. But once you get to the span of turns 2 through 9, then it just gets so tricky in that section. Lots of rapid elevation changes that can unsettle the car. Well, these cars don't have the same aerodynamic floors like, say, a Formula 1 car, as Hop House goes ahead for a little spin and puts a little tire grill on for us. These cars still do use a slight bit of ground effect to keep the cars kind of vacuum to the ground. But yeah, sudden changes in elevation can unsettle these super light Super Formula machines. And I mean, these things are just an absolute marvel of machinery. And I'm so glad that we have very talented racers showing us the true potential of these cars, especially with tuning being enabled this season.
Yes, man, he gets 1 lap on the board finally, and it is for all to so away from P2. He just brushed the wall there on his next attempt, so he had to restart, and now he's on another outlap. A lot of boarded laps here from these guys.
Yeah, so we're about halfway done with this qualifying session now, as the lap times are going to start trickling down. Right now, We have R. Debris, Aces, and Iceman currently sitting in your top 3. And then Hop House very close to P3. He's only just under 2/10 off of that time. So yeah, I do think once these drivers do get going on some faster laps, we're going to see these lap times fall quite a bit. Gomez sets a 1:11.682, good enough for P6 at the moment. He was P2 or P3 last time out, I believe, in sprint quali, so not the pace that he wants to have, especially going into the second of these 2 sprint races, as he goes ahead and gets off track a bit. And Hop House being told by Illusion to switch to the racing soft. So that time was on a, if that time was on a medium compound tire, then that is pretty dang impressive. And getting word from Illusion that these lap times are going to fall. A 1:08.4 was the pole position for last season, and that was with limited tuning. With a little bit of, mostly BOP, but a few wing adjustments were allowed to be made. So you can definitely expect these lap times to fall. Now, overtake is not enabled in these qualifying, or no, actually, correction, overtake is enabled in these qualifying sessions. They're not in the practice sessions though, so if you do a time trial, let's say like if you go into the solo mode and you do a time trial run, you're not going to be able to use overtake because overtake is not allowed in time trial or practice session for whatever reason that may be. But if you go into a qualifying or a race, then you will have that overtake. Now you can pretty much do a lap and then reset to go ahead and refill your overtake. It's a common strategy that we see amongst these drivers. But yeah, I do think these lap times are going to really start falling down as we approach the 2-minute remaining mark. And Ducadono sets a 1:11. That's good enough for P4. Iceman sets another time. He'll make an improvement. He'll still sit up into P3. And it looks like Iceman at the moment, his pace is pretty much right in between where we both said he would start the race from. So yeah, very good stuff there.
So between the 2 of us, perfect prediction.
Yep, and actually that's a purple sector 1. Or yeah, that was a purple sector 1 there for the Iceman. Is he just gonna chill his way into P1 here as R. Debris does set a faster lap time? So this might be good enough for P2 if it continues on, if he continues in sectors. Actually, yep, that's another purple, even with R. Debris' improved time. So this might be good enough for pole position here for the Iceman.
Yeah, it looked like he had just enough overtake to actually do 2 hot lap attempts in a row. That was actually even more benefit on the second lap. Less full and the tires are warmer. As he's about to cross the line.
Not quite. And it's an improved time.
For P2.
Good enough for P2, as P23 said, but still half a second off. So he lost half a second somewhere in that third and final sector. He might have just ran out of overtake. We'll check his data. Yeah, I think he might have just ran out of overtake there. New lap times being formed across the board. Arturo set the new lap time, but he'll improve his time, but not his position. He'll go ahead and just sit in P number 8. And yeah, we'll see where Flying Aces
out
goes.
Of position is Gomez.
Yeah, P7 is not where he wants to be. Flying Aces will improve his time and improve his position. He's up at a P2 on track. And we come down to the last minute. So yeah, Aces is done with his qualifying. He won't be able to send out lap in time. As we go on board with current pole position. And there's a second penalty. His qualifying's done. Gomez sets in a good time, good enough for P4. We'll see where Iceman goes. He's coming across the last corner. He's coming across turn number 18. It's not going to be enough for a pole position, and it's not going to be an improvement either. So that's his qualifying done. We'll see about Gomez.
We do have Gomez. Yeah, Gomez on a fly now. So the last chance to improve up the order. He did improve up the order lap. It's now up in it for a bit more of a representative position. We'll see if he can fly even more laps.
Indeed, yeah. So, oh, got a little bit squirrely there on the exit of that corner. That's his lap time probably done and dusted. He won't be able to make an improvement. He did improve through Sector 1. We'll see about his Sector 2 time. Oh, yeah, 7/10. That time is done. We'll go on board with Hop House, maybe? Actually, Azure is going to cross the line. That's not an improvement either. So that is our qualifying grid done and dusted. As Gomez is the last driver out on the flying lap. We'll see where he sits. He's coming across the line. It's not going to be an improvement, so he's going to just chill out in P4. So, yep, that is qualifying wrapped up, and what a session we had.
It was a good session indeed. Yeah, Yono maybe slightly out of position there. Either that or Hop House just had a really good lap time.
I mean, Hop House earlier had a time good enough for P2, or not, sorry, not P2, P4, but he was on mediums. So that was a very, I mean, he just might like this track a lot. So very good stuff there from all these drivers. So going ahead and re-showing the grid here for the start of the race, you have R. Debris taking pole position once again, followed by Faringaces, Teo Iceman, Gomez, Hop House, Decadono, Chemizure, and Artura.
Excellent. Yeah, and I do wonder, like, what kind of tunes these guys have, because they probably didn't spend too much time tuning for this little preseason round in particular, but they are allowed to have tunes, so I'm sure that these guys' cars are set up very different right now, and so it's really hard to tell who would have an advantage based on the car is set up.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that's one thing that kind of differentiates BOP to, like, full tuning. With BOP, everybody's basically in the exact same car, so you get a more idea of a raw pace, but the game sense and the knowledge of how to tune your car is a strength that you're gonna need. So you really need the best of both worlds. You need to be strong on track, and you also need to be strong in the tuning garage, and having just a full understanding of the tuning options and what the track is required. And once again, we're just getting some rules from Lucian. No overtake usage in the lap 2. You have to use both soft and medium compounds, and only Lucian can call a red flag. Once the red flag is called, every driver will exit, and the race is going to be restarted.
Got a good reminder. So if these guys take any damage, it will be permanent until they fix in pits, and that would be extremely detrimental to these guys' races here.
Yeah, because this track, it's good, a lot of good overtaking spots, but it is a bit narrower compared to Interlagos. So, especially through the tunnel segments of this track, and also that really tricky run from turn 2 to about turn 9. And yeah, I think we do have a really solid race on our hands here, as we see the drivers giving the Ys, letting them know that they're ready. And so we're going to go ahead and see on track some action here really soon. And the host will start the race ever so shortly.
Here. Looks like we can expect Teo to probably start on the medium tire here, as he asked. That was okay, so a little information being given out early.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which of the two tires that you start on, but you do have to run both sets of tires. That is the only restriction. The final race will go ahead and start here in about 5 seconds time. We're going to start seeing drivers on track as we get going here. And the final is starting. All the cars are loaded to get on track. And we will get on track. We're about to watch those 5 red lights come on and then go right out. If you want to take the race start, you certainly can, B23.
Sorry, cut out.
I was going to say, and it's lights out and away we go. I was going to give you the race start, but there was a bit of a cutout there. We do apologize. But the race is underway. Lots of cars jockeying for positions. Gomez, Owen, It looks like a big mistake there from Iceman. He drops all the way down to the back of the grid, and we're seeing position changes all across the track. A little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact there between Gomez and Aces. Two rivals from Formula GT coming to blows here again in GPL.
I got Ducky and Gomez. Peter's out.
Lots of scrapping up and down the field here. Gomez losing a few positions as well. Hophouse in a podium position now. And just a reminder, you cannot use overtake until lap number 2. And honestly, this is probably one of the best spots to use overtake. So if you want any kind of slipstream advantage, you just got to get right up behind the car in front of you, even though there's a good amount of dirty air. Hophouse nails the exit of that corner with perfection.
Arturo had an excellent start this race. His lap 1 is going. He's making moves on in the P5. Hophouse looks like he's going to make a move too. I mean, not quite enough there. Around.
Gets a little bit on the grass there.
A little while. Yeah. Gonna give Ducky Dono all the traction.
Yep, that Red Bull Adidas machine will go ahead and slink up into P number 3. It would be a good position compared to the prior sprint race at Monza. Didn't have the best of times, especially with that lap 14 pit. But we have 15 laps here on this track once again, and now we're seeing a few track limit penalties. Gomez and Aces, the victims of the half-second penalty. They're going to be slowing down here soon once they get into the second of the 2 tunnel sections. So that's undoubtedly going to lead to a loss of position. Yep, he loses 1 position to Arturo. Arturo now up into P5. A little bit of contact there between Azure and Gomez there, putting Gomez a bit wide, unless that was another car hitting Gomez or hitting Azure into Gomez. So maybe we see a little bit of scrapping here between these cars and maybe a little bit of damage.
Simultaneously putting here on screen Arturo and Paco versus each other as we got JD Killswitch. Chemisler making that move stick as well.
Yep, Gomez. Yeah, word from Lucian is that Ducadano should be pushing now. He needs to push with all of his might. And I mean, that is a valid strategy offer, just to go ahead and make the most of it and just go full send, especially with Aces with another half-second penalty for track limits.
Oh, Ducky crashed.
Oh, that is unfortunate there for the Red Bull Adidas machine. I guess he pushed a little too hard. So Aces P2 will stay.
Yeah, so it's one thing to crash. It's another thing to struggle to get back on the track proper, to get the pointed in the right direction. So much time there. That might be a 10-15 second right there. And his front wing damage, you might want to come in to fix that too. So it's only lap 3. We got Aces coming in as well. And Chem's with it. Yes, so we got 3 drivers in the pits right now. And so that will Teo Iceman drive quite a bit here as he gets promoted up a few positions. And he gets squirrely. Big drift saved it. That's an impressive hit.
But Forest Troubles. Forest Troubles, he gets a half-second time penalty. And Killswitch, a driver we didn't see in qualifying. He's here for the second feature race. Or he's here for the actual race itself here at D-Force Raceway in Switzerland. And so he's probably going to catch right up to Iceman. He's got that half-second penalty, so he served it. Lost a little bit of speed. Not enough for Killswitch to immediately take control and take P5 away, but another swerve there. Another bit of oversteer from the Greek driver. It's just not been his race so far, as we see Killswitch actually come onto the pits.
Yeah, Killswitch with damage. Forking it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just been an unfortunate race. Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing in chat that 9 seconds and 3 laps is nutty. I'm assuming he's talking about R. Debris just storming away to another dominant race victory potentially here, and this time in Switzerland. Yeah, so it's, yeah, I mean, that if that's not a sign that this man deserves a seat in WEC. It looks like Killswitch just came together ever so slightly with Chemistry there. A little bit of contact there. Probably a bit of damage on that front wing. Chemistry does have a half-second penalty. So on lap 6, he will have to serve that penalty. As Killswitch is looking to move up a position. We'll go on board with the American driver as they're coming through the... Actually, sorry. Wrong position there. So he will go up into P7. And the slowdown zone is here, and that's an effortless pass for the American driver onto the other American driver, and he is up 1 position. As we look for another driver to go on board with, a little bit of a lag spike there. So Aces is coming up to Iceman. We'll see if we can see a battle there very, very shortly. Yeah, I agree, Artura. Ace is on a different strategy, and Hop House is having an excellent race here. He's up in the P3. We'll see if that P3 sticks when the pit stops when everybody else does their pit stops. But no flying aces, that's been pretty easy on the tires, so this early pit strategy might actually work in his favor. So it's very interesting to see, because typically in a sprint race and a lot of other formats, you don't really see pit stops, but we see him here, and it's led to a lot of interesting strategies. He's on the fresher tires. He's going to potentially make a move. Not now. That's not the best corner to overtake on, but definitely through the Swiss Eau Rouge, we'll definitely see a move made for certain. Especially as Iceman decides that it's time for him to switch to a new set of tires.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, he's off now. We could assume, and so he probably think he'd make these last till the end of the. That'd be about 8 laps.
Yeah, I mean, this is a shorter pit lane compared to what we had earlier in Interlagos. Drivers do get in and out really, really quickly. So, I mean, you don't lose nearly as much time. I think you lose actually about 10 seconds less.
Yeah, one of the quick stops on the calendar too. Yeah, you lose time, and so that opens up a lot more strategy options.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot more strategic freedom here in this race compared to what we would have had previously with the last track in Interlagos, just because of the differing durations of the pit stops. So yeah, I think we do. It opens up for more strategy, and I'm really excited to see this race when we get to round 4 in the full championship. So yeah.
Ducky and back, you're looking to make kill switch here as they to the end of Ducky with the slipstream. They go into turn 1. We'll the time they.
Indeed. So Ducadono is going to try to fire one up around the inside to get a new position up from. Killswitch does not quite get it done. Killswitch sticking around the outside. He's got to make it stick. He is making it stick so far. But now we're into the really twisty section of Sector 2. And this is a good spot for Killswitch to kind of run away with this for a bit. I mean, this is easily the hardest section of the track. Lots of rapid elevation changes coming into the next set of corners. And now they're about to enter the tunnel sections. So now, the Chemistry does have a penalty. He's going to have to serve. It's a 1-second penalty. So that's going to allow the 2 battling cars behind it, but can both get past. I guess there's just not quite enough real estate, especially as they battle. But Duckizano up in the P9, or up in the P8.
And it doesn't look like JD Killswitch is giving it up as he can have slipstream all along this long straight going into turn one. Again, turn one is an excellent turn for battle. It's rough. You can on the inside or the outside. Outside does have can hold on around us as well, just as JD showed us last time. It looks like Ducky Dono's car must be fast and maybe lower that because even though JD slipstream, Ducky Dono is kind of pulling away a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe he's burning more overtake, something I could assume, but something that is a matter of fact rather than an assumption is Killswitch has a half-second penalty for his troubles and for going off track limits. Looking for another battle here as we see Artura going ahead and making his mandatory pit stop for the race. He's going to go ahead and shed those soft tires and put himself onto some mediums.
Yeah, and that's so easy to get a track limit there too, because you exit there tunnel. As a driver, you want to bring close to the wall as possible when you exit, but if you're all the way close to the wall, you are just out of the track limit, so you need to exercise just a little bit of exertion there, and that's really hard for these drivers to do when they're trying to maximize every corner.
Indeed, as we see a wheel-to-wheel battle between Artura and Iceman there, touching a little bit, rubbing tires just a smidge, but Iceman, even though he's on the older tires compared to Artura, he goes ahead and retakes P5 on track, making a pretty decent recovery drive. Turn one, lap one, he pretty much fell way to the wayside, fell down in the order. He went super wide going into turn number one, but now he's back up into P number 5 as it sits. Now Hophouse is going to be the first of the podium runners to go ahead and make his pit stop.
Oh yeah, pitting away from the median too. It's probably good to get on so you can get some softs in there. Yeah, the top 3 are all off. That might actually be an advantage for Hothouse. These guys, when they pit, they're going to lose all the pit time, and then they're going to be on the slower tire to Hothouse too right afterward.
Yeah, Aces does not have to pit again because he pitted very early on, around lap 5, so he's good. But these other two of Debris and Gomez, they're the ones who are going to have to pit in. Although granted, Hophouse is 30 seconds away from P1 as it sits, so I don't think his position is going to be in danger, but Gomez would be in danger of losing that podium spot because he is only 7 seconds ahead of Aces, and Aces is only about a good 7 seconds ahead of, or 8 seconds ahead of Hophouse, so Gomez is about roughly 15 seconds ahead, and he's definitely going to lose that in the pit, so it's definitely going to be a last lap scrap if Gomez hasn't pitted in yet.
And just look at his lap, I mean, he is prime example of consistency. Every time, barring one, in the 12s, and even the one that's just is very bullet. So for every almost identical. That's exactly what you want an assistant race driver.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So we're gonna go on board this time with, let's see who's got a close battle. We'll go on and watch Ducatono's resurgence through the field. He is catching up to Chemizure a bit, but Chemizure does have a penalty, so he's going to serve that once we get to the tunnel section at the beginning of Sector 3. So that is surely going to mean Ducatono's going to move up a spot. The pit loss is around about, what would you say, about 15, maybe 20 seconds? Well, actually, see here.
About or between 15 and 20, which is much shorter than time lost.
Yeah, we'll actually go ahead and watch. Aces is passed. We'll see where it goes. Gomez is coming out of the pits. That was about a 12. That was about a 15-second loss, I would just assume. And Gomez now is on the medium tire. Hophouse is on about a lap or two older soft tires, but those tires are already at their optimal temperature, so he's going to be on the quicker tire for pretty much the last 3 laps of this race. as we see Ducadono actually going to the pits again towards like the later stages of the lap. So Ducadono kind of doing some self-sabotage, it seems like, with pitting in within like the last few laps of the race.
Very. I wonder what's happening. Because Ducadono very for his consistency.
Yeah, so
Oh, crash. Kemazur goes straight into the wall, gets stamped on the front wing and suspension. It really looked like he just drove straight in the wall, didn't turn in.
Yeah, he might have just missed his braking point. Might have just missed that braking point ever so slightly. Yeah, the car's front wing is not in the greatest of positions. He's certainly got damage on the front of the HoloLive themed machine. Let's go back to the battle.
Car is mangled.
Yeah. So looking at lap times, there isn't too much of a difference between at least within the last representative lap for them. Lap 13. 13 was slower because it was a pit, or actually about 2 seconds slower for Gomez. It must have made a mistake somewhere. And now we're going to see Hop House potentially take his first podium in GPL on his second race, even though it's only preseason. But still, like you mentioned earlier, a podium is a podium, B23.
Oh yeah, especially with these drivers out here out of any good role for this guy. These are no slouches.
Yeah, I mean, this race is wrapping up. We're down to our last lap. It's make or break for these podium positions. And also, lurking just ever so slightly behind, Iceman is about 3 seconds behind. If one of these drivers makes a catastrophic error, then Iceman's just going to just swoop right in and take a spot. And we see RD Bree with a penalty though, but he's still 9 seconds ahead, so that's not going to cost him too much. He's only got a few more corners left to go, and then he'll go ahead and take victory in both sprint races. A pole to flag victory for RD Bree both times. He's definitely getting a WEC slot. As he rounds the last few corners, he's going through Swish A Rouge. Coming up through the last bit of corners here. Coming across turn number 18. He's on the final straightaway now. From left to checker flag, absolute domination for R. Debris. Ricky wins here in Switzerland at the Force Raceway. Flaring Ace is going to come across the line in P2. Now it's time for the last battle. It's going to be close, but not enough real estate. Gomez locks in podium number 3 at Hop House. A very representative and very well-deserved drive. And Iceman just shortly behind the pair. Arturo crosses the line, and then it's going to be Keminger and actually Ducadono are going to be battling for P7 there. So Keminger in the HoloLive car. He's got one last corner to go before the Swiss A Rouge, as we're just going to go ahead and call it. He's coming up across the last few corners. Coming turn number 17, now turn number 18. He's going to hold off Ducadono, probably burning all of that overtake. And he's got P7 in the bag. P7 to P8 is decided, and Killswitch just not having the greatest of races. He will go ahead and finish where he started in P9. Pretty good race there,
yeah,
B23.
Limping across the line. Oh yeah, it's a nuts race. And of this race last year at this track was my race of the year by far. It was nuts. Insane racing, like every single corner, every lap. It was nonstop. We saw something similar today. A lot of battles, close battles where they hold on and keep fighting. Very good stuff. And shout out to Flaring Aces, as I was using Gomez for his consistency. I looked at Flaring Aces laps too every single time I saw her in the low 12s as well. Very good consistency from Flaring. A good podium. Amazing
stuff. So that is the end of the session. Artillery, pole position, and victory in both sessions. That is more than certainly going to qualify him for a WEC seat. We'll see where he goes and see how he does when the full season starts on February 2nd, so about 2-ish weeks away. But yeah, so overall, what was your thoughts on both of the preseason sprint races we had here?
That was cool. It's really nice. Two short races back to back like that. That's pretty fun. Just nonstop action the whole time. And hopefully more of the races during the season with a reverse grid too. That's that before. So you guys are definitely going to want to stay tuned. Like and subscribe here. So follow us on Instagram as well at Prestige League, so you all the updates on all the races come soon.
And with that, we sign off here for today, February 2nd, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1300 Gran Turismo time. We'll be back for the first race at Monza. It's going to be a fun one. You don't want to miss it. We have two divisions, so on February 2nd, we have WEC, our top class racing, and then we go ahead and switch over to SWT the following week at the same time. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube, and make sure you put that notifications bell on so you don't miss whenever we go live. And yeah, I think we're going to have a very solid season ahead of us. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys next time. Goodbye, everyone.